Bill Barnwell's got a story up on ESPN.com right now that is interesting. It is ranking the 0-2 teams in the NFL. There are 10 of them. And yes, he has the Saints ranked ninth. It's not a shocking development. He does say the Browns are worse than the Saints. But there were some interesting pieces in the analysis that I think are a little bit more important than where he has the Saints ranked, because as we've discussed ad nauseum, like, we're not really that concerned with where the Saints rank in the National Football League right this very second, because they're not really going anywhere this year. But what's the most important thing about this current Saints roster? Well, it's probably the young players. But right there behind it, if not maybe a little bit in front of it, I can listen to either suggestion. It's the coaching staff. It's Kellen Moore, and it's Brandon Staley, and it's putting a foundation in to try to get out of this rut that the front office has put them in, right? And the wins and losses are not going to reflect the positives that this coaching staff is doing, because they quite simply do not have the horses to run this race. But that doesn't mean that you can't coach well. And that's an important step for this franchise. Kellen Moore is going to handle that offense. And I feel like there's a pretty good chance that Brandon Staley handles the defense for a few years. Coordinators come and go, yes. But Brandon Staley's stint with the Chargers did not go very well. He was not well received nationally. His reputation wasn't great in the league because the thought was that those rosters were really, really good, and he didn't really get anything out of them. So I don't think anybody's beating down the door to hire Brandon Staley away if the Saints field a couple of good defenses. So what I'm saying is, I think the Saints have a chance to keep Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley in place for a few years. And if they do a really good job, that's a huge, huge positive for your team. And we can sit there and watch what the Saints are doing offensively, sit there and watch what the Saints are doing defensively. But I do think some of the numbers that I certainly can't monitor while we're watching the game and don't have access to the ridiculous metrics that ESPN do, some of these numbers were encouraging to me. For instance, and the line says that Staley's defense is letting its freak flag fly. I think some of these numbers are good. According to Next Gen Stats, the Saints are having defenders drop off the line of scrimmage a league high almost 52% of the time. They're disguising things. They're doing things out of the ordinary because they know that they don't have elite players on the defensive side of the ball. They've also led the NFL in creepers, meaning guys approaching the line of scrimmage, as well as simulated pressures. They're doing that at a 12% rate. That leads the NFL. As Bill Barnwell writes, it's a necessary reality for a team that doesn't have the talent to win by simply rushing its front four. The pressure looks help the Saints define protections and create potential one-on-ones. And that's coaching. That's coaching is having to make up for a talent deficiency. And if you're doing things that are creative, that are cutting edge, that are giving opposing teams some issues, even though at times the players that you've got aren't able to take advantage of those, that's as good as you can hope for from a coaching perspective. And I like the fact that the Saints are being as creative as anyone at the line of scrimmage defensively. I think that's a really, really good look for Brandon Staley. Now, I wish Mac Jones didn't light the Saints up last week. I wish that Pete Werner did a better job in coverage. I wish Demario Davis was 6 years younger. I wish that you didn't lose one of your new starting safeties for the year after one game. Like, I wish all of these things were true. I wish Chase Young had played. But I think Brandon Staley, statistically and from a creativity perspective, is doing a pretty good job, and I like that. The secondary ranks 25th in EPA per play when the pass rush doesn't get home. That's just a product, I think, of youth, of Kool-Aid McKinstry, of Lante Taylor. These guys are pretty young. Now you got Jonas Sanker in there, and you're not covering great. Like, they didn't do a great job against Marvin Harrison Jr. I get it. They didn't do an awesome job against Kyle Shanahan's offense in coverage. But while you coach those guys up, if you're being creative, I think that's a real positive. The Saints also offensively, if we switch to Kellen Moore's group, they're doing something that leads the NFL right now. And I didn't realize this. Like, I'm watching the game, and I do get a sense that they do want to play quickly. That's very common for young offensive coaches. The Saints are the fastest team in the NFL, as Barnwell writes, by a considerable margin. They're going very quick. They're not allowing defenses to completely set up. They're trying to simplify things for Spencer Rattler, who is throwing the ball a lot. He's thrown 80 passes through 2 weeks, and Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson are two of the league's 12 players that have 20 targets apiece. So as Barnwell writes, they're leaning into tempo. They're making Rattler's life easier in terms of seeing fewer exotic blitzes. If defenses can't communicate a lot pre-snap, it limits what they can do. Everybody's got to be on the same page on defense. You can't have busts. And so if you go quickly, you may make things a little easier. And I don't know if Kellen Moore would play this quickly if he had a prime Drew Brees there. You might want to take a little bit more time and make sure that you're getting things complex on the offensive side because you've got a guy that can handle that. But in this case, you don't have a veteran. You don't even have one on the roster. So you're doing things to help with that. And I didn't realize the Saints are playing the quickest of anybody. Rattler has been sacked on only 4.6% of his dropbacks this season. That's above league average. You know your right guard's not playing well, and both your tackles are quote-unquote new. The rookie's a left tackle, and on the right side, you've got a guy who's playing right tackle for the first year. He's a second-year player. So you're effective in keeping Rattler upright by playing quick, by allowing him to get the ball out quickly. All of these things are positives to me with the way the Saints are being coached. I am well aware you've got a young offensive line that's playing horrendously at right guard. I'm well aware that your running back is past his prime. I'm well aware that you don't have a game changer at tight end. I'm well aware that you don't have an elite number one wide receiver. Chris Olave is a nice player. Does he stack up with the number ones across the NFL? I would suggest no. Like the horses aren't good enough to run this race, as I said to start. But I like the fact that some of the Saints' tendencies, some of the things that they've done through 2 weeks suggest that they're being coached well. Ultimately, Kellen Moore is going to be judged on wins and losses. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, he's not going to be judged on wins and losses this year to the extent that he will ultimately. If things go atrociously and you lose every game on your schedule, we'll have a different discussion. I don't anticipate that that's going to happen. But I don't think there's a huge difference in going 3-14 and 5-12. I think those are essentially the same. This is not a wins and losses discussion. This is a creativity, innovation, and then playing to what you have. It's going to be on the front office and some of these coaches to make sure you restock these shelves come draft time, make prudent free agent acquisitions, find a couple of guys that are undrafted that can make your team and make a contribution. The overhaul with personnel is going to take time. It just is. But the guys that you feel like are going to help lead this charge are already in place. And I learned some things in this piece that suggest that they're doing some things well. Kellen Moore screwed up the beginning of the end of the first half in terms of using his timeouts in the first game. He absolutely did. That was indefensible. His answer going into the halftime locker room stunk. I wouldn't phrase it any other way. But let's just see if that happens again or if he learned from that. It's the first time that he's been a head coach ever. First time he's had to make those decisions ever. Now, I've never done it either, and I'm sitting on my couch going, shouldn't they be using some timeouts here? So to me, like, it's not excusable, but I will allow for a first-time head coach to make a mistake here or there, especially early in the season. But as long as we see progression from that perspective and you see them doing things like this that are noticeable in the analytics that may not show up on the win and loss marquee that you see every Sunday on the pregame show, that's a positive. And, like, I'm just not really in the mood to sit here from August through Christmas and just dump on the Saints every single day because their team's not good. Like, that's not fun. Nobody wants to listen to that, and it's repetitive. So when I see something that is a positive, like, I'm going to point it out. I'm going to highlight it because you always have hope. And that hope is dwindling for this year, and I don't know if anybody really had much of it. But for the franchise, for moving forward, I feel like stuff like this is a positive.